Hi guys, thank you for joining. Oh, we're trickling in real well here. Okay. I'm going to give us a couple minutes, just as with webinars. Always takes a couple minutes for everybody to get settled. Let me share my screen so you're not just looking at us. Hope everybody's doing well and has been able to enjoy this almost summer-like weather we're having. It's wonderful. I got to go to one of our recycling centers yesterday and everyone was very pleased with the weather. Although there was some wind that is not very good for recycling centers, so that was fun.
I hear there's rain in the forecast.
Yes, as far as I know, Saturday evening, hopefully, because I'm running a marathon Saturday morning. So
Oh, wow.
We'll see. Yeah, fortunately, I have a friend that is organizing a small enough one for it to be possible in Ottawa. So. Just to confirm, are you guys seeing my presentation screen? Okay, thank you. All right, looks like we're getting closer to more people being here. I'm gonna give just a few more minutes. And feel free at any time, if you guys are having technical issues, you should see the chat feature. And then there's also the Q&A will be available the whole time for any questions. We'll definitely leave plenty of time at the end for questions, but you can also type them as you go if that is preferable, so you don't forget something. Okay, I think we're at a good point to get started. Like I said, for anyone who joined after, there should be a Q&A feature for you. You can type in questions at any time as we go along. I have a couple different people that'll be presenting information, so feel free to ask questions. We're going to wait until the end to answer all of those, but if you think you might forget, feel free to just type it in. And feel free to use the chat as well if any technical issues come up. We'll have somebody monitoring that for now, but hopefully none of that is needed. And I'm also recording this, so if you need to jump off or if you want to share it with anyone, I'll be sending out the link for that once it's available. Right, so thank you all for joining our discussion today on recycling for multifamily properties. There we go. So first I wanted to just go over who we are at Bridging the Gap. We are a nonprofit with a mission of connecting the environment, economy, and community, and have been around in the Kansas City Metro since 1992. At that time, a few individuals realized the need for our community to have recycling and established a community-wide program through drop-off centers. Eventually, that transitioned to the city adopting curbside recycling. And at this point, we have a hybrid now of a few recycling centers that we manage, 3 in the city of Kansas City, and also the city has curbside recycling as well. We also have a variety of other programs, all with an environmental mission. The business recycling program that I'll speak to later, a litter abatement program that is coordinates recycling or litter collection events throughout the metro on a regular basis, as well as has a tool lending shed so that people can organize their own litter pickups. We have a green business network that brings together green teams throughout the metro area, as well as sustainability professionals, and allows them to share ideas. And oftentimes in a normal year, we have events where we get to tour places. We have been able to do great things virtually this year through webinars, and sometime we'll get back to our regular in-person events. We have a Heartland Tree Alliance that is increasing the tree canopy throughout our area by planting right-of-way trees, and also just educating people about the benefits of trees, how to care for them, and that's for both children and adults. We have Casey Wildlands, who works to restore and increase our remnant prairies in the area. The Green Stewards is a workforce development program that is increasing BMPs throughout the city and maintaining those to effectively manage stormwater runoff during rain events. And the energy and water efficiency programs, we have several of those, with our most recent one being a program called Leak Stoppers that works with KC Water customers to identify and help stop leaks in their water systems at home so that their bills can be lower and they can be not wasting any water. That has been a really cool program to watch come up throughout the year. So first I wanted to make sure you are all aware of our last webinar of the year. The Green Business Network is putting on a webinar with Johnson County Community College's Center of Sustainability regarding zero waste, and it will provide a case study of Postie Card's wonderful zero waste program at their facility here. So that is December 10th, and I'll share a link also in that email follow-up with how to register for that. So today's presenters, we have John Blessing and Doug Smith here from Waste Management. We'll provide some great insight on the recycling industry, and I will provide some information on our business recycling program that I manage. I also want to take some time to thank our the grant funders of our business recycling program, the Mid-America Regional Council's Solid Waste Management District and the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. We would not be here virtually without them, so thank you for that. So to go back to why we're here today, I wanted to talk about multifamily housing in Kansas City and the recycling opportunities in specifically. So if we're looking at the prominence of multifamily housing, according to the Census Bureau's 2019 Americans Community Survey, 22% of housing in the metro area, so that is kind of the wide metro of both sides of the state line is 22%. And so when you tie that back to the population estimate that survey provides, that equates to about 474,000 people. And if you follow along with the EPA's estimates of each person in our country generating 4.5 pounds of waste per day, that equates to over 2 million pounds of solid waste per day that is generated by those people living in multifamilies. So with an estimate of about 80% of our solid waste being able to be recycled, that is just a huge opportunity for waste diversion for those people living in multifamilies, which when we speak to that's, apartments and condos. So when we see that, because of the diversity of those that live in multifamily properties, on-site recycling tends to be the most successful way to capture those materials. It spans, people's abilities and their schedules, but with that comes a lot of challenges and a lot of unique opportunities that arise because of the way that multifamilies housing is different than the single family unit. So with that, with those challenges that we speak of, waste management can provide some great insight into where those opportunities lie and how they see, through the processing of the materials that are coming to the recycling facility, how we could do, things on the front end to combat those issues and make sure things are going great at the properties. John?
Thank you. Again, my name is John Blessing, and I am the Public Sector Manager for Waste Management, which is just kind of a fancy title for I manage all of our municipal accounts, all of our city contracts. Before I jump in, I just again wanted to thank Bridging the Gap for putting on this webinar. They are a valued and collaborative partner of Waste Management, but not just us. I know that they help a lot of businesses. So again, thank you in advance for everything you do. It was talking about multifamily recycling. So as you can imagine, the majority of the work I do with municipalities is residential. So when you think of residential recycling, you think of curbside recycling. It's in front of somebody's house. And curbside recycling is currently averaging around 25% contamination, meaning if you think of those carts at the curb, a quarter of that is trash that when it gets to the recycling facility. Now, commercial recycling has historically been cleaner than residential recycling, but that is why we want to focus on multifamily recycling, because technically it is tucked into that commercial line of business because it doesn't have toters for the most part, but it uses the big commercial recycling containers. But when we do studies of multifamily recycling, we actually find that it is not as clean as the majority of commercial recycling. In fact, it rivals the contamination of regular curbside recycling. And that's mainly due to the unique challenges that you have with a bunch of residents living in of units and facilities that are sharing recycling services. And it's just very hard to get that message across. Success in this aspect takes kind of a collaborative effort between the property owner, the residents that live in the property, and then of course the waste and recycling hauler and processor. That collaborative effort's made up of about 4 different parts. A planning part, right, where you need to have the right number of recycling containers, the right number of trash containers, and believe it or not, where those things are placed plays a big role in whether or not someone is willing to walk all the way to the recycling container or the trash container or put their bag of trash in the first container that they come to. The second piece of that would be education. I have found out in a lot of my municipal efforts that there are people out there that think they're doing the right thing, that want to do the right thing, but just don't know the right thing to do. So education is a big piece. That can come in the form of these great webinars. I know Bridging the Gap has a robust website. Waste Management, Recycle Right website. It has a lot of information for businesses, municipalities, and residents on what to do. We also give MRF tours. So I think everyone here might know what a MRF is. It's Material Recovery Facility, in case you hear that jargon throughout this webinar. Giving in-person tours of these facilities is eye-opening and educational. Now, during the era of COVID, we unfortunately have not been able to have these in-person meetings, but we do have a virtual MRF tour that is actually available. And if we have time, we can look at that later on in this webinar. The last two components of this collaborative effort would be signage, making sure there are signs on the cans are properly labeled. Is it a single stream recycling container? Is it just for cardboard or just for metal? As well as on the corrals. A lot of these multifamily units have corrals that hide their containers. So sometimes just putting signs on the containers don't do it. And then last but not least, it has to be communication. There has to be an ongoing cycle of communication between the property owner, the residents, and the waste hauler, giving feedback perhaps on audits that are done, new ways to improve recycling, and of course, an update on what the recycling market is currently doing. So talking about what the recycling market is currently doing, I'm going to kind of pass it off to my coworker and peer, Douglas Smith, who works for Waste Management in the capacity of with the major accounts rep for our MRF, for our material recycling facility. And I think we can look at the next slide, and Doug, you can take it from there.
Yep, thanks, John. Yeah, so like John said, my name is Doug Smith. I am the account manager at our MRF here in Kansas City. And I'm really just here to talk about, kind of the challenges that we see at the recycling plant and how they might relate to, any kind of recycling program, but especially multifamily, housing, developments. So it's been an interesting couple of years in the recycling markets, with China not, kind of putting a stop to taking exported material. Throughout the most part of last year, we just saw commodity values shrink just to 10-year lows. And a lot of people I talk to, the values of the commodities that we recycle were at the lowest they'd ever seen them last year. And then, throw COVID on top of that this year, it's, as much as it has affected everything, it has also affected the recycling industry in the sense that, we now see a lot more volume coming from residential recycling and a lot less volume coming from commercial. As you see there at the top of this slide, residential volumes do remain high to date, and commercial volumes have not recovered as, just as we kind of go through this. It's been, we really don't know what's going to take place. But through COVID, we actually saw a demand increase in kind of the values of the fiber commodities, which has helped. But that being said, the average value of, per ton of recyclables is 50% of the value of 3 years ago. And through that, processing costs have continued to rise. And a lot of that is because of contamination. The biggest thing that we see, the biggest problem we have in contamination at the plant is actually plastic bags and recycling. That we have a lot of rotating equipment at our facility. Those bags get tied up in all of our different screens and conveyor belts. And, it's not uncommon to have to shut the plant down multiple times a day to take bags out. And that's one of the main reasons for the, besides the decrease in value of the commodities, the increase in processing costs has really made recycling tough. It's been a huge challenge for us. And then another thing with China putting the stop on export, Waste Management has had to try to find, domestic homes for all of our material. We've done a really good job of that. We have no problem moving material and finding in markets for it. Especially out of the Midwest, I would say, almost all, if not all of our material is staying domestic. We're not exporting very much material at all out of our facility. So that's been a nice change. Our marketing team has done a great job of finding homes for our material. So we continue to successfully recycle it. Just the biggest challenge is the decrease in value of all the commodities and just continuing to fight contamination, which comes down to, as John was saying, just education and so many people wanting to do the right thing that just don't really know or aren't sure about what to do. So it's, you know, it's a team effort, and it's a continual effort to try to fight all this. And I think that's really all I have for now anyways.
Yeah, sounds good. I think that brings up, you know, a really good opportunity for us to watch the virtual tour. So let me pull that up on a different screen here, just a moment. I think it'll show some really interesting things as far as how the contamination affects things. I remember there even being a clip in there of someone having to stop the machines plastic bags. So I know John mentioned that, which is very interesting to see. Okay.
Have you ever wondered how your recycling gets from here or here and to here? Waste Management's recycling facility bale area, where the product is baled and ready for shipment to manufacturers. Whether it's recycling material picked up from your home or from your business. That's right, I haven't even introduced myself. My name is Michelle Martin, and I'm a plant manager at Waste Management's material recycling facility. And I'm gonna be the host of your tour today. So let's go take a look inside. Regardless of what recycling facility you're at, it all starts right here on the tip floor, when the driver delivers materials that came from your house or your business. When it arrives here, the loader pushes it on to a conveyor system. This is the beginning of the system, and where the action really starts is also known as the pre-sort area. Now, in a lot of modern recycling facilities, there's a lot of automation, but it still takes our employees to make it happen. So here, what they're focused on is pulling up contaminants that are going to jam or impair the system, or possibly impact the safety of everybody else along the line. So, as you can see, this is an important job, and our employees are exposed to various items moving across the line. And that's why we provide them with gloves and other protective equipment. But the risk still exists. That's why it's so important that you put the right items in your recycling cart. Things like needles, aerosol cans, propane tanks, all pose a safety risk to our employees, including fire hazards. And speaking of contamination, we're now looking at one of the screens that helps separate fibers from other containers. Screens use rotating discs of various shapes and sizes to sort containers from the fiber. But contamination, like plastic bags, clothing, garden hoses, holiday lights, all get caught up in the discs and the screen. Then our employees get inside the screen and cut the material out by hand. Another recycling contaminant is moisture. No foods, no liquids. And we need your help to keep this out of the stream. When we have foods and liquids in the recyclables, it could lead to load rejects, and it spikes the cost of recycling. To separate the recyclable materials by type, we utilize optical sorters, magnets, and an eddy current as part of the process. Here is a magnetic drum, and it's used to remove ferrous metals from the stream, for example, tin and steel. Materials run over the drum, and only the ferrous materials stick to it, allowing the other material to continue on through the sorting process. The eddy current uses a powerful magnetic field to separate the non-ferrous metals from the stream. So don't crush your soda can. It's easier to recover a three-dimensional object as the materials move through the processing equipment. Here is an optical sort. These units use a combination of lights, cameras, and air pressure to sort the desired material from the stream. Optical sorters are commonly used to sort plastics. And after all the sorters and the machines have done their job, it's time to make a bale. And then when the bales get to here, we stop and do a final quality check to make sure that no contaminants have slipped through the process, such as plastic bags or even polystyrene. And finally, load material into semis for shipping to manufacturers who make new products, such as carpets, clothing, or potentially even your next pop can. So contamination, like we've already discussed, food, liquid, garden hoses, holiday lights, propane tanks, needles. Not only do they cause a safety concern to our sorters, but it also contaminates our recycling stream, increasing costs for us all. So you can help us recycle properly by knowing what you can and can't put into your collection cart. And when in doubt, leave it out. Then go check it out. Talk to your local provider or your local community leaders for more information on recycling programs. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that. It's always so interesting to get to see inside of the facility through those virtual tours. I think that's the only positive we've had with this year is all learned a little bit better about going virtually on things, just like the webinars. So with tying that back to multifamilies, I did want to speak to a couple of local properties that have recycling programs in place. I was able to interview a couple different property managers and see what they're doing, which really helps to kind of know what options people have out there. So I'll get right into that. Did want to share this beautiful image that I took at one of the properties. Reverb Apartments is a newer property that opened just this August, managed by Asset Living, is located in the Crossroads District at 18th and Walnut. They have 132 units and offer glass and commingled recycling to their residents. So in their parking garage, just off of their building, they have commingled recycling in a small and large container, and then ripple glass bins for recycling their glass. So residents can just empty those on their way to their car. And they also have additional bins located near the elevators on some of the floors for convenience. This is just to help facilitate recycling on the residents' part. The apartment staff does manage these bins and takes those to the main collection point in the garage, but just trying to make it as easy as possible. Another property is Westside Flats, also opened this year in the spring. Managed by EPC Real Estate and located on the west side at 17th and Madison. They have 29 flats and 4 townhomes and offer glass and cardboard to their flat residents, and their 4 townhomes can actually use curbside recycling. They contacted Bridging the Gap after getting their glass program underway, and we helped look through their options and help them install cardboard recycling and put up some posters. They do have a trash chute system, as does Reverb. So the residents put their trash in the trash chute and then have signage in those areas of where to take their cardboard and how to break it down and get it ready for recycling. And there's also 51 main apartments I was able to tour recently. They're managed by Greystar, have been around about 5 years, so they're the older kid on the block as far as these ones I'm speaking about today. In the South Plaza at 51st and Main. They have 176 units and offer glass and commingled recycling to the residents. And they also just this month launched, or this past month, launched food waste composting as well with Casey Can Compost. So this is kind of a setup of their recycling area. Just off of their garage, they have 3 bins for all of their commingled recycling. They have a pretty robust program going after 5 years. So these get collected 3 times a week. They also have glass bins from Glass Bandit. And then that bright orange bin is the lovely Casey Can compost bin. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for everything. And that's after they deposit their trash via trash chute as well for them. So you can see some of the different, signage on the bins, instructing people of what can go in those. I spoke with the property manager there. They did mention some struggle with contamination, and most of that tying back to cardboard and boxes not being broken down, or things being left in them that aren't recyclable in the regular stream. So, the little pieces of styrofoam, stuff that goes into shipping, plastic bags, that sort of stuff. So their system currently, they do work on educating the residents and everybody, but their system is that the 3 days of a week that the recycling gets collected, before the time that it comes to get collected, maintenance staff will go and check the bins and address anything that they see as problematic. So it's definitely different opportunities and areas for ways to manage things, depending on what works best for residents and staff. So with that being said, some of the best steps for success in multifamily recycling. We may seem like a broken record today, but education is definitely the most important thing. So making sure everybody knows what can and can't be recycled, and any steps that need to be taken before, such as the breaking down, if it's commingled, rinsing out containers, that kind of stuff, putting the lids back on things. All those little steps, really help with that lowered contamination rate that we're trying to get to, and helping on the end, so that, as you saw with Michelle, they're not going crazy with all the different things that they have to pull out of the system. And I think John mentioned this before, but if trash and recycling are both collected via dumpsters, one great thing that can be done, if space allows and if it works okay with the hauler, is to separate the dumpsters. And the method or the reason for that is that if someone's going out to the dumpsters and they have both things, and maybe the trash container is full, they're like, oh, they can just both go in that recycling one, or vice versa. And then things are getting trash that could be recycled, and you just see all the different problems that could happen with that. So that is an option for those, without the trash chute system. If everything's by dumpster, then that could be a great opportunity for less contamination. And another option to check on is if cardboard only recycling is going to be determined as the best option. There are special bins that the haulers can provide. Most of them you'd want to check is there's a kind of a little split at the top, so that the only thing that could fit in there really is a broken down box. So they couldn't put a box in there if it wasn't broken down and get all the things out of it. There's a lot of different options out there. So Bridging the Gap can definitely help with that, looking into all those options. As I mentioned before, our business recycling program is funded by Mid-America Regional Council's Solid Waste Management District and the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, in an effort to increase recycling and waste diversion. We provide organizations and properties in Missouri with waste diversion consultations, which leads to implementing programs and then training for success. We do that by connecting organizations to local collection providers to make it as easy as possible for everybody. And also partner with Recycle More at Work to provide ongoing recycling education. That program sends out fantastic newsletters each month that provide recycling tips, usually really helpful stuff around the holidays. The one that just came out, had Thanksgiving tips for reducing waste. So those are fantastic things that can be shared with the residents via like a newsletter or bulletin board. So the process that we have at Bridging the Gap for our program begins with a self-assessment that the property manager can take, just asking some basic questions about what's going on currently. From there, a follow-up consultation on site to see the waste stream and observe everything, kind of pinpoint possibilities for recycling bin locations, and following that up with tailored recommendations of how to address those waste streams and what's going to work best for staff and residents. And then assistance in setting up any programs that are deemed to be a good option. From that, you can even, we have really unique ideas like reuse options for moving boxes because of the constant in and outflow of residents. That's kind of a unique opportunity that multifamilies have is some residents like, hey, that's a fantastic box that I could use because I'm moving next month. And you can just imagine. And then, so with that, the education that's opportunities through various medium, obviously in-person trainings, doing a lot of virtual trainings now are definitely an option, both for safety at the moment and also, the convenience. We can also record those for, watching later. Signage placed throughout the property, both on bins and, directional signage to where your recycling bins are. And with that, providing information via newsletters. Definitely information in move-in materials is suggested, providing residents with knowledge of what can and can't go in bins, where those bins are, which also brings, there's also information that can also be provided as far as additional opportunities. These people might be completely new to the Kansas City area, so they don't know where to take, their plastic bags or their household waste, hazardous waste. And that's another unique opportunity with multifamily housing, which also ties back to specific education for our area. Every region's kind of different on those nuances of recycling. So constant education is just the best bet. So to get started with our recycling program, I have a link listed here for that self-assessment form that I mentioned. It can also be found on our website at bridgingthegap.org/recycle. Just a few minutes, nothing too crazy, and then we contact you about getting started with the on-site consultations. And I have my information listed here, an email, phone. I would suggest following our social media for recycling tips, as well as any other environmental stuff related to our other programs. And while I'm speaking about social media, be sure to check out recyclespot.org if you're not already familiar with it. You can follow them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or also just go to the website. If you haven't visited that, I would take a couple minutes to look at their fantastic search function for the harder to recycle items. You can find where to take those. They have some great background information on the whys of certain things that aren't recyclable. Definitely check that out. I also have John and Doug's information listed here, so in case you have specific questions to the things that they spoke about. They may be able to answer those better than I can. And with that, we will go to the questions. I think we have a couple that have been asked during the presentation, but definitely feel free to continue putting those in there and we'll go through all the questions. John, did you see you already had some that you wanted to look at? Let's see.
So it looks like I opened up the chat box and it looks like there's one in the QA. So the chat box, it says, how does the lack of glass in the Joco WM MRF change/help the value of the blended ton out of KC? Doug, you might be able to give some specifics on this. I don't know, but I can tell you that we are at a real advantage by having somebody like Ripple in our area due to the improved quality of the commodities, because we don't have glass shards mixed into all of our recycling. So I know from a limited point of view, when I'm competing with other recycling MRFs, we always shine because of the higher quality than those that do accept glass in the stream. I don't know if you have any specific numbers, Doug.
No specific numbers, but the lack of glass definitely helps the blended value. You know, speaking from Joco specifically, just because glass has very little to no actual value on the back end. And it also, you know, if it's not broken by the time it gets to our facility, it's definitely broken as soon as it hits our equipment. So basically all the glass shards just fall through the equipment onto the ground at the MRF. And it's expensive to process. It's also heavy. So it adds, you know, even not that much glass is a lot heavier than a lot of plastic bottles. So if you have a large percentage of weight in each ton of your recycling that is glass, that's valued at a low amount, if not a negative amount, that's going to negatively affect your blended value per ton and increase the cost of recycling. So that's, you know, and as John said, you know, it just helps us out a lot. And in the bale quality on the back end, it just also helps us out from a processing standpoint and an overall value standpoint at our facility. So it definitely helps that the glass isn't in there. And Ripple is a great option for people to go through, and apartment complex managers, property managers, you know, whoever that might be. Ripple has a lot of different services they can offer to help those facilities out.
I know originally that MRF tour link talked about safety, and you can imagine we already get arrowheads, hypodermic needles, you name it, comes through this stuff already. It's nice not that our employees don't have to worry about glass shards.
Yep.
Looks like we had a couple of other questions here. So is WM no longer accepting post-consumer plastic, or is it just not being exported? Where does it go?
Yes, I'll answer that one. So Gerald, we are definitely still accepting post-consumer plastics. We have found domestic homes for that material. We ship, you know, depending on the type of plastic it is, we generally have different buyers for that, but they are all domestic. You know, hopefully that answers your question.
You know, I can kind of caveat off of that. Although the commodity prices have taken a big hit, it is kind of nice to see the change in the industry where domestic manufacturers are using this recycling and it's not all going overseas.
Yep.
Okay, it looks like we've got another question here. Do you think the problem with multi-unit recycling comes from older buildings not having actual space for large recycling dumpsters? I know that is a certain issue. As recycling is expanding, there are organizations that want to do it right, and they want to go as far as having a box for cardboard, a box for plastics, a box for metals, which is fantastic. But to your point, there just aren't a lot of space, you know, in some of these older facilities to accommodate this. And I know a lot of municipalities are changing ordinances where containers have to be hidden in corrals and not visible from the street and things like that. So space is a big issue. That certainly is. I know when I'm dealing with municipalities now, maybe not for commercial entities, but even when we're dealing with some residential developers, that they take into consideration the size of carts, that garages need to be bigger, right? And that you don't want to have these things out on the street like they used to be. So I think space is a big issue.
John, do you guys have any, specific methods to kind of problem solve that? You know, like smaller containers, maybe picked up more frequently, or is that kind of all case by case?
It is case by case, but there are certainly options. I mean, they're not always the most economical. I mean, you can have a smaller container that's collected 5 days a week, opposed to a large container that's collected maybe 2 days a week. There's going to be increased costs for that, sure, but it does solve the problem. If you don't have the space for it, there are certainly options as far as containers and service frequencies out there that can help you get creative.
Yeah, I know a creative thing that we've kind of brought up too is, there are several drop-off facilities, and not just ours, in the metro area. So, it might even be cheaper to have, pay your maintenance staff to take it to our drop-off or something. we try to come up with solutions as a group. But that was a fantastic question. Do you have anything else?
I'm looking through the chat. Looks like a couple have popped up in the chat. I'm not sure. Najia posted this one, who this is to. Are apartment managers contacting you, or are you having to seek them out, or both? Cecilia, that might be directed to you.
Yeah, it's pretty much both. You know, we get contact. We had Westside Flats earlier this year that reached out to us through a referral. We definitely explore where we can help as well. So yeah, I mean, any method that we can help out, whether you know, we put out there our information or they get it from somebody, we're just happy to help people.
I think I see one that might be right up Doug's alley. Can you give us the latest on cartons? It says aseptic. Do you have a home for those?
So aseptic cartons, there's really not a market for those specifically. We don't get a ton of it at our facility, but they do come, and it's hard to really sort through with our equipment. Usually they're going to end up in a mixed paper bale, mixed fiber. So it doesn't really get baled up with cardboard or anything like that, but it is being recycled and turned into new paper, but it's really not recyclable. There's some different layers to that type of material that doesn't break down right in the fiber.
A couple more questions have popped up on the Q&A. One here that says, could there be / is there a downtown drop-off center for recyclables? I know folks who live downtown that don't have vehicles to take their stuff to outskirt locations. Cecilia, I don't know, do you know of this?
I mean, I don't have an answer for sure. That's way above anything that I have any say over, but we can definitely make sure that's known to, you know, we manage the 3 recycling centers with the city of Kansas City, Missouri. And I know they are regularly in talks about, you know, what's going well, and I'll bring that up. That would be really
I think that's really a driving force driven by the municipality itself. I know the municipalities that have contracted all of their services, either residential, commercial for city facilities, or a combination of both that I deal with. We have a lot of those. I know there's one in Overland Park that I do. We have some in downtown Kansas City, Kansas. But again, that's really up to the municipality. There are costs involved there that the municipality has to take on, as well as management of those sites. You can imagine if it's left unmanaged or unstaffed, so to speak, people could go in there and throw, you know, car tires and couches and those things. So there's a lot behind making those work. And if you want one, I would say reach out to your city staff.
Yeah, we'll make sure it's known as well.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point on the, you know, the management aspect. I know, I think North Kansas City, or one of those cities recently, had to take away one of their unmanned, you know, drop-offs that they had, just because it was unfortunately too contaminated regularly. So yeah, if we can have staff there, that's definitely the best. Great question.
There's another one here from Sherry that says, does WM or BTG push recycling teaching in the school so kids learn the basics and the intern can persuade their parents? A lot of kids live in apartments. I'm sure the answer is yes to both. I know myself, I have given presentations in schools, and I have given presentations in public libraries. Again, for the cities that I manage, we offer a robust education campaign. Some take advantage of it and use me all the time. Some don't. So again, that's kind of at the behest of either the school district or the municipality itself. But we're always willing to do so. I'm sure BTG has some options there as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I've done plenty of virtual programming with adults, so I'd love to do that with children as well. Our partners at the Solid Waste Management District also recycle more at work. He has Eco Elvis, so that might even be more entertaining than I can provide. But yeah, we love to provide all education to any and all ages.
I have been at an event with Eco Elvis. He is a sight to see.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I've got 2 boys that are 10 and 12 right now, and we have been recycling fanatics since they were born. And when we go to my grandparents' house, I mean, they double check my grandparents. So I think this educating the younger generations, now it makes me sound old, but I think that is, I mean, that's one of the ways that we're going to see success long term.
Definitely. Yeah. Awesome. Anybody else have questions? I think we've answered everything that's been put up.
There was a request for our contact information again.
Oh yeah, let me pull that back up. And I'll be putting that in my follow-up email as well. But oh, actually, I have all of our 3 of ours on this slide. That didn't work. Yeah. Well, I think that is all we got then. Any last minute things you guys want to share? All right. Okay, there we go. There's our contact information. I'll leave that up for anybody.
If anyone is an interest in that virtual MRF tour, the link is out on YouTube. We can share that as well.
I'll include that in my email. And I did want to mention on that
Okay.
point, since we brought up glass as well, Ripple has a really cool virtual tour as well. That's fun to see. So I can even include that in our thing. I love all the virtual tours. I don't know if it's just me, but. All right, well, I think nothing else has popped up. So I will call that good and let you guys have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a good holiday next week, everybody. And again, December 10th, we will be joining with GBN and Posty Cards to learn about zero waste. So please join us for that. I'll include a link in my follow-up email to register for that as well. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.